In the last lecture, we learned how to handle errors inside an NgRx effect. Now in this lecture, we are going to show the error messages inside a toaster. So currently, if we go to our application, the error message is being shown something like this. But what we want is we want to create a new component called toaster, and inside that toaster component, we want to show the error messages. So for that, let's go to our application. For now, I'll close all these files which is opened. All right. Now in the app folder, we are going to create a new component. So let me open VS Code built-in terminal for that. And here we are going to generate a new component. For that, let's say ng generate component, and I'm going to call this component as toaster. Let's press enter. So now inside this app folder, we should have a new folder called toaster. And inside this toaster folder, we should have all the files related to that toaster component. Currently, if I go to the HTML file, there you will see a paragraph element which says toaster works. But in order to design the toaster, what I have done is I have written some HTML. So I'm going to use this HTML and I'm going to display it here. I mean, paste it here. Let's save the changes. And currently we are displaying a hard-coded error message, but we are going to change it in a bit. Next, what I'm going to do is, in order to design this toaster, let's go to toaster.component.css. And in order to save some time, I have also written some CSS. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to paste it inside this toaster.component.css file. All right, let's save the changes here as well. Now, let's open toaster.component.ts file. From there, let's grab the selector of this toaster. And now let's go to app component. So let's go to app.component.html. And here, just after the loader, I'm also going to use the selector of the toaster component. Let's save the changes and let's go to our application. And this is how the toaster will look like. Currently, we are displaying this error message. We are hard coding this error message, but we are going to change it in a bit. Now let's go back to our application. And what we want is this toaster component should be displayed only if we have an error message. So for that, here I'm going to use ngIf directive. And inside that, we are going to pass this expression. So we are going to check if we have an error message or not. If we do not have any error message, in that case, this error message will be empty string, and empty string is a falsy value. So in that case, this toaster component will not be displayed. Let me save the changes. And now if we go to our application, you will see that that toaster component is not being displayed. Now let's go back. And what we are also going to do is in the toaster component.ts file, let's create a property. Let's create an input property actually. So for that, I'm going to use this input decorator. And to use this input decorator, we also need to import it from angular/co. And here, I'm going to create a property error message. And this is going to be of type string. And initially, let's say error message is empty string. All right. Now, we are going to pass the actual error message for this input property from the parent component. So let's go to the parent component, which in this case is app.component.html. And there I'm going to do property binding. So what I'll do is I'll move this ngIf in a separate line to make it more readable. Okay, and let me move this closing tag also in the same line. And here I'm going to do property binding. So here we are going to bind error message property of the toaster component, and to that we are going to assign this error message value. Now, since it is going to receive an observable, I'm going to pass this complete expression inside these double quotes. So once we will have the value for the error message, that value will be passed to this error message input property of toaster component. Okay, and let me save the file here and let's go to toaster.component.html. Let me close the CSS file. Let's go to toaster.component.html, and in here we want to display the actual message. So here I'm going to use string interpolation syntax, and in here we are going to use the error message property of toaster component. Let's save the changes and let's quickly test it. So let's go back to our application again. Let's go to login page, and there let me provide an invalid email. Let's say john@gmail.com, and let's provide a password. And when I click on this login button, since I'm providing an invalid email, there should be an error during the login, and that error message is being displayed inside this toaster. Now what I want is, after some time, this toaster should also disappear. And you can see that error message is also being displayed here. So for that, let's go back to app.component.html, and from there, let's remove this div. We don't need it anymore because now we are showing the error message inside a toaster. Now what we are going to do is, let's go to toaster-component.ts, and here what we will do is, after 5 seconds, we are going to dispatch the set error message action, and there we are going to set the error message to empty string again. So for that, here I'm going to add ngOnInit interface. For that, let me make this toaster component implement onInit interface. Okay, and now I'm going to specify ngOnInit, and let's also provide a constructor here so that we can inject the store class, an instance of the store class inside this toaster component. Let's create a private property. Let's call it as store. It is going to be of type store, and to use this store, we also need to import it from NgRx store, and let's specify the type as app state, and we also need to import it. All right, so in this way, we have an instance of store inside this toaster component. Inside this ngOnInit, I'll use setTimeout. Okay, and to this setTimeout, first we are going to pass a callback function, and then I'm going to specify a timer of 5 seconds. That means 5000 milliseconds. So what we want is, after 5000 milliseconds, we are going to dispatch an action. For that, let's say this.store.dispatch, and from here I'm going to dispatch set error message action. Now when we are dispatching this set error message action, there we also need to specify a payload. Here we need to specify the message property, and this I'm going to set to empty string. Let's save the changes. So when the message is empty string, at that time, if you remember, we are not showing this toaster component. So here we are using this ngIf. This ngIf will display this toaster component if this error message has a string value. If it is empty string is a falsy value. In that case, this toaster component will not be rendered in the web page. For this, let's save the changes. Let's go back to our application one more time, and let's provide an invalid email, john@gmail.com. And when I say invalid email, that means we do not have any user with this email in Firebase. And for the password, I can provide anything. And when I click on this login, it should display this toaster message. And after 5 seconds, it should disappear, as you can see. Okay, if I try to log in again for 5 seconds, it will show this toaster message, and after 5 seconds, it will disappear. Now, if you want, you can also add some animation while the toaster message is appearing or disappearing, but I'm not going to do that in this lecture. But now we are showing an error message in a toaster whenever we have an error during the login, and that toaster message will disappear automatically after 5 seconds. All right, so with this, the login functionality in our application is complete. From the next lecture, we will work on the sign up functionality. So using sign up, we are going to create new users in Firebase, and those users should also be able to log into our application using this login page. Let's start on the sign up functionality in our next lecture. This is all from this lecture. If you have any questions from this lecture, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.